Woo! The Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here for, well, something I told you that would be coming. And, I'll tell you. So this is going to be our CES special. It's kind of funny. Like, I guess in some ways, you kind of want to do this right after CES, but really CES, it sort of takes January for it to, really come to a head. So we're at the end of January, so I think that that's actually a good time to do it. Partly because a lot of what gets shown off at CES, usually, like a lot of companies, what they announce will actually come out in January or February. So it's a good way to weed out the bullshit if you wait just a little bit. And if there's something like, if there's a certain category where you're looking for a very specific product, certainly you shouldn't be waiting for Sovereign Tech to look into that. You want to jump on it right away. I think it's still timely, and there were some. This was, in my opinion, a fairly interesting CES for a couple of reasons that aren't apparent necessarily based upon some like breakthrough product, right? But we'll get into that. So, for those that don't know, CES has been something. This is actually, I think, technically the 40th year of CES, because I think the first one started in 1967. It's held in Las Vegas every year, pretty much around the same time it's always been, even though there used to be more than one. Like, I don't think it became a once-a-year event till maybe the 90s. Now, I've been to CES before. Now, understand, CES used to be an acronym. Like, it was Consumer Electronics Show. Now, they're just saying, no, it just means CES. It's not just Consumer Electronics Show anymore. So, and people do this, like what, San Diego Comic-Con, right? They used to be called the SDCC. Now it's just Comic-Con. It's not technically San Diego Comic-Con anymore. Whatever. I guess these guys are just trying to like route the branding names or something. But yeah, so CES, I've been to these in the past. There's always funny things to be said about CES. There's the common CES cold, meaning that you're around so many thousands of people that you can't help. But you get sick generally. There's so much going on. There's so many people around. There's so many vendors around, which can actually kind of be. It's not. I don't want to say it's unfair, as in like it's unethical. It can just be unfair in that because of just the raw amount of things that are usually on display in CES. Now, granted, I haven't been there in a few years. However, we're going to actually get an exclusive report from a Sovereign Tech listener who was at CES and had just some great things to say. I'm going to read from that. But I haven't been, so maybe things have changed a little bit. But I remember when I used to go, part of the problem was that most, even like especially the reporters who are supposed to actually let you know about all this shit, like they wouldn't get past kind of very very much further past the entrance, past the doors. And so whoever was at the front of CES, usually that's who got all the press. And so like, getting that front billing, shall we say, okay, when you go into the entrance, at the convention center, that's prime property. It's like buying ads for the Super Bowl. And so oftentimes, usually that's TVs, and they get all the attention, even though nothing really exciting, in my opinion, happens in the TV space anymore. In fact, we did a CES 2016 review last year. And then actually, I think for 2015, I did an entire, I think I called it the fuck shit of CES. I actually did a Sovereign Tech Quickie episode. You can find that just when you go to, like, say, SoundCloud or even on COG.ninja or whatever. Just type in Sovereign Tech Quickie and you'll come up with those. And there was one, I called it the fuck shit of CES, and it was just, and I was just railing against the fucking TV industry in that. So, I'm not really going to talk about TVs in this, though we are going to cover quite a few different categories as far as product categories, and there's some interesting ones. Like, one of the interesting things I think that happened at CES, and this is based upon, first off, my own, like, kind of outside, looking in, reporting journalism, I guess, but then also, again, I base some of these things on what that boots on the ground report. And total thanks to the person, and they wanted to stay anonymous, and that's fine. But they really like brought up some things that I'm telling you nobody else is really reporting about. So you are getting some very exclusive, or not exclusive, but very rare, very unique perspective and information, here on Sovereign Tech. So, and which, by the way, thank you so much, of course, for being a patron. A lot of the patrons I've heard from patrons saying that they have long gotten their value out of being a Sovereign Tech patron and all of the extra content that comes out through it. So I hope that this adds to to that value. So yeah, you're getting something very unique here, and well. The interesting thing that I wanted to get into that sort of was seen to be on display is like how revolutionary seemingly, or how the thing that had the most interesting, new developments, revolutionary developments happening at CES was literally the desktop PC industry, or maybe not just desktop, but the PC industry overall. It wasn't the TVs. It wasn't a lot of these other things, even though there was certainly a lot of IoT there, and we're going to get into that because Alexa just seemed to be fucking everywhere. Oh. That's a whole other subject I could go down, because now you have tech shows saying, oh, we're not going to use the A word anymore. We're not going to say Alexa anymore. But so what? Can you say Echo? But then some people have their Alexas to say Echo. In fact, now Amazon just announced that. And I'll admit this is cool for what it is, but for what it is, I don't, based upon what it is, I don't want it. But now, a command to awake the Amazon Echo, you can say computer, kind of like in Star Trek where Picard or Scotty or whoever, whatever generation you're watching, would say, computer activate blah 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 blah. Which I admit that's cool to be able to do that. It's like, just please let me do that on my own home system and not connected to fucking Amazon servers. Thank you very much. So anyway, but that's something we're going to get into here in a bit. I really want to break down into the unique stuff that I guarantee, or not guarantee, but I'm fairly certain you probably didn't read about on any of the other major websites that were covering CES. So I'm going to read here from, and again, total thanks. And the person offered, the person just messaged me, and he's a patron. That's all you're going to get is just pronouns. Okay. And said, hey, I'm going to be at CES. Would you like me to, kind of give you some boots on the ground there? And I said, absolutely, please do, and I was so honored by that. And that's really great. Anytime any of you, and this is an open invitation, if you want to, do some boots on the ground reporting effectively for Sovereign Tech and let me know about something, say you're going to convention or something like that, or you're catching a talk or whatever, and I don't happen to be there, yes, you can offer, and I'll even, if you want, this person wanted to be anonymous, but if you want, I'll share your Twitter handle, whatever, however you want that to work out. I'm more than happy to do that because it's very valuable to get that information, and obviously I can't be everywhere at once. So otherwise I'd be God, but there's no gods. So anyway, why don't I just start reading this report? But there were things, I'm just, we're going to go through all this, but I just want to say right out of the gate is there were some things that I thought were absolutely revolutionary, that were very exciting. If not maybe original for CES 2017, they were certainly refined for CES 2017. So I want to break into those too. But here we go. So, and I'm reading here, quote, so essentially, CES was a bit of an IoT nightmare. Of course, but you repeat yourself. IoT is the nightmare. Yeah, but right on, yes. There was a lot of this shit all over the place, and almost every major player had at least some use of the term. The second one being smart home, which seems to be just another way for them to say IoT. Stanley breaking in, exactly, yes. Smart home and IoT, smart things and IoT, and all smart devices. I mean, it's all, they're absolutely all just, it's a different term for the same exact thing. And I don't know if there's any advantage to them, using different aspects of that. I mean, IoT, I don't think the average person knows what IoT means, but when they think smart home, I think they kind of get the idea. So maybe that's why they have some of these interchangeable terms, but they do all, yeah, you're absolutely right. They do all mean the same thing. Reading on. LG might be the most egregious with how much they showed off being connected to the internet, but also because they're selling it with a cute robot, which seems to work on people. Just throw some eyes on something, and then it's no longer a security hazard, I guess. Which we've talked about. Stanley breaking in again. We've talked about that recently. There was the one from ASUS. Was it Zemo or what? I don't recall exactly which that was called. But and we talked about the concern that God damn it, kids are going to fall in love with this shit, and companies, I mean, how well do companies support your smartphone, which costs more than the Zebo, the ASUS Zebo bot, and that's you're gonna create all these kinds of crazy traumas on something where these companies just don't support it. And we know this based upon the robotic dog industry in Japan, where like Sony, made these dogs that become almost literal members of the family for a lot of these Japanese folk. And then there has to be this huge aftermarket, or not huge, but this aftermarket business, has to start, which can repair these things, but then they run out of parts because, I mean, all right, side tangent. Here's the thing. Again, you can say, well, that's the nature of business. You can't expect everything to last for years and all this shit, right? And look, people really do. I mean, they see something cute and they kind of stick to it, especially children, whether it's electronic or whatever. The easy way to do this is open source your shit. That way, an aftermarket company can come into existence and go on into perpetuity and cut a little niche for themselves. Okay, so there's pro-consumer ways to not have to, for a company, say like Asus or LG or something, to continue to support, there's pro-consumer actions that these big companies can take to where when somebody gets, really starts falling in love with these cutesy products, which that's why they're making them cute, so that people fall in love with them. I mean, not like, sexual love. Well, I mean, that's it's already here and on its way. But, that's why they do it. So if you're going to stay pro-consumer, well, allow it to go on, perhaps even into perpetuity or whatever, because the market will answer that. So, but you got to allow for it. You got to open source this shit, okay? To allow people to do that. So anyway, just a quick side tangent there. There's a way. That's how a company should end of life things, is open source it. If you want to wait, I mean, I think you should open source it out of the gate. But if you want to wait, as soon as it comes out, open source it. I understand why, to some degree, why they can't, because it could still be using technologies that end up getting put into the next generation or something. But okay, that's what's good for your company. Is that good for your consumer? Maybe not. Well, I have a very pro-consumer stance. I know a lot of people of my ilk absolutely do not. Or at least it doesn't show. But whatever. Okay, here we go. Reading on, the presentations were very much trying to give off the Jetsons vibe to varying success. The general tone on the floor seemed to be a sense of awe for the older boomer generation and a relieving sense of skepticism from the younger people. Quote, isn't this a security risk? End quote. Quote, what happens when they stop supporting the software? End quote. Quote, why the fuck would I need internet-connected underwear? End quote. So I'm guessing that's exactly what he heard, that he heard people saying that, kind of younger people at CES asking those questions. Wait a minute, why does this need to be internet? Good. Yes, those are the attitudes that need to be had. Absolutely. All three of those questions are fantastic to ask. What happens, which we were just talking about. What happens when you stop supporting this? Is this a security risk? Why the fuck is that internet connected and all that? Fantastic. I'm glad people are on board with that. Okay. Reading more. That being said, a few companies had things that stuck out from the crowd and caught my eye in this realm. One was a company called Amplify, a mesh security type company. What even drew me to the booth, besides the modern minimalist booth, was one of the icons that said cloud-free privacy on their security cameras. So essentially what they sell is a little hub that acts as its own Wi-Fi network, not connected to yours, unless you want it to, on a different channel and communicates with up to 4 security cameras. They also sold their own Wi-Fi router and mesh repeaters. But essentially, if you want to view it from far away, you can connect it to the internet if you want to, if you choose to, and use something like a Google portal to see what is going on in the cameras on your phone when you aren't at home. People seemed very receptive, and they said they want you to be just be able to buy the product and use it forever, not worrying too much about updates and whatnot. All of which we just discussed. Stanley breaking in again. That sounds very interesting. That concept of creating entirely its own network and its own router, not connected to, say, like an OnHub or to Google Home or whatever the fuck it ends up getting connected to, because this and that's really key. Especially this is one of the things that I don't think a lot of people talk about with mesh networking, is that especially with security systems. Now the conversation around security systems is a whole other thing, and there's another one that he brings up as well that I thought was very interesting. We'll talk about it here in a second. Okay, but with security systems, I mean, what happens a lot of times is, what was the flaw with older security systems, like, say, pre-internet, like the classic ADT and all this stuff, right? Was that it was connected to your telephone line, and what would a malicious actor do? They would cut the telephone line to your house, and so then your security system doesn't go off or something like this. No, I mean there's ways that they worked around that, but that's kind of the basic gist. Modern day, what happens is that because your router, your average run-of-the-mill Wi-Fi router, is connected, of course, to what? To a modem, which is connected to your ISP, which is obviously connected to the big bad internet. Okay, when they because of that, they can a very uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Competent. A competent cracker, not hacker. Hacking is a heroic act. A crack is a malicious one. A very competent cracker could, like shut down the security system in your home because it's all connected to the big bad internet. So now, if you have like this, like with Amplify, and it's AMPLIFI, if you have this, it's a mesh networking solution that runs on its own network. So they can't access it unless it's within, they'd have to identify it. I mean, especially like in a, and there's repeaters and all of which is great. I like the sound of that, and I looked into it a bit. It's very interesting. But like if you are in a, if you're in a more urban setting, I mean, they'd have to find out which network is what. I mean, there's a lot of it makes it difficult. So mesh networking for the win on this. Like really, I think that's a brilliant little idea, and I love the idea. Cloud-free privacy. Those are the right terms. That's great that those kind of, not just saying, because anybody can fucking say private, right? But for them to say cloud-free, look, this is it. And this is going to be kind of a message overall that I'm going to be getting into really throughout February for Sovereign Tech, is that the crypto economy is really coming, and it's kind of here. And like there's amazing things happening with Tor. There's a whole bunch of other shit. LavaBit's back. Woo! There's just tons of exciting shit happening that I think we've really been getting depressed and have been waiting a couple of years for, and now it's all finally coming out. We got Zcash, got all kinds of things going on, right? To where you really have control, and this shit can be used for the long haul. Can really be used for the long haul. In fact, even LavaBit can, because with LavaBit, the infamous, the notorious, and I use those terms with endearment. Email service run by LeVar Levison, which I'll be talking about this on the Prime episode, there'll be 210 of Sovereign Tech this Saturday, tomorrow, because this is getting recorded on Friday, January 27th. They allow you to download their software, Magma it's called, and you can run it on your own email server. You can use their dark mail privacy, right on your own email server if you want. So this is great. This is the kind of thing that's happening, and I'm glad it's got the attention. I'm glad it was CES, where people are saying, nope, I want control. I don't want Google to have control. I don't want Apple to have control. I want fucking control. Yes. So right out of the gate, I think that this is actually a good thing. This is pretty cool. So mesh security, mesh network-based security. What a great concept. Great concept. Get away from the cloud for relying upon your security. Absolutely. That you could take that in the abstract in a million ways, and I am fucking on board with it. So anyway, let's read on a little bit more. There are obviously a lot of absolute garbage security locks connected through the internet, through their proprietary apps, which of course, Stanley breaking in is a huge problem because it's not open source. But one device that seemed promising was SecureMate, and this is SECUR mate.com. So there's no E in secure, but securemate.com by Initium Labs. When I talked to them in the booth, the pitch was, for many people who don't stay in one place for a long period of time, most security systems you have to install all over the place and aren't easy to remove, and you have to pay monitoring fees. The system comes with a controller and as many sensors as you want to bring with you, say to a hotel or an Airbnb, and you can stick them on any doors or windows, or drawers for that matter, and once armed, if broken, will alert you and anybody else who might be on a trusted list to come help you. But it doesn't require internet to work, so I like having that choice. Okay, so now I looked into this one, the SecureMate. This is pretty slick. It's a very, very... all right, how it functions, if you remember... as a kid, perhaps, if you remember, and I'm sure they still sell these sorts of things, but they used to sell like little toys that could work as like a security system for your bedroom, right? Where, like, in fact, I had one that was lost in space. Seriously, it was B9. Was B9? Yeah, sorry, I got it confused with Data from Nemesis, who was B4. It's the B9 robot, and what it did is you at your door, you would put the little B9 robot, maybe on a dresser next to your door, and then you would have a little reflector on the other side of that. And B9 would be projecting, just a little beam, nothing that you could see, obviously, that would, when the door would open and that beam would get blocked, suddenly B9 would start saying, danger, danger, Will Robinson, right? Now, I had it in a very fancy little robot, all right, but this concept can be done, in any way that you like. I mean, this is how garage door, systems work, garage door opener systems work, to where, how do you know, when does the garage door stop? When it knows that something's, passing by this little, light back and, this beam going back and forth. So that's kind of how this works, is that you have two little devices. The one device is a little block. The other device looks like, or the other piece of the security system looks like a couple of batteries, and you slap that like on a door, on the, above the door, like on the molding of the door, and then on the door itself, and it sticks on there. I'm not sure exactly what the applique that allows it to stick on there is, or the applicator, but it sticks on there. So anytime somebody opens a door, it'll go off. It'll alert your phone, which your smartphone should, quote unquote, should be next to you. And you can buy a bunch of these, and they can all work in concert and in tandem. And you can set up through the app, okay, on the phone. You can set up to where this can send notifications. It can send emails or something to not just you, but other people that maybe need to know that something's been broken to. Now, the thing is that this is just a very simple system. There's no installation whatsoever. You can put it anywhere, kind of like how we mentioned that it can work on drawers. So you could put the one part of the box on the on the face of the drawer, and then you put the other part of the box on top of the drawer. And when that gets interrupted, when the signal gets interrupted by somebody opening the drawer and it's not you, then beep 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 beep, your smartphone goes off and whatever, or emails get sent out, however that ends up shaping up. Now, I'm not totally clear, and I went to the website. I wanted to find out how exactly this works. I'm guessing, because they said it works without internet. So I'm guessing that this is Bluetooth connected somehow, like that the controller or whatever is Bluetooth connected, and it sends everything out. Either way, I thought it was actually pretty slick. I was like, yeah, this is something. I'm glad that he brought it up and mentioned it, because I could easily see the use case for a lot of this stuff. Now, not everything listed here do I have prices for. I'm not exactly sure how much it'll cost, but if it sounds like something you're interested in, well, take a bit of a deeper look. But I think that this is pretty cool. And I mean, the idea and sort of the pitch, when I was looking at the videos for a lot of stuff, sort of the pitch that they're giving is that maybe you're a person who's like in, hotel rooms a lot, like that travels quite a bit, and you just want to make sure your shit's secure. And this can work for that, to where, again, if it's Bluetooth, I don't know how exactly that'd work. Maybe you can connect it. Maybe there's like a pairing or something. I'm not 100% certain how exactly that works, but I don't know that you can necessarily be away from it somehow. But either way, it's a clever idea. You could set it up at the door of your hotel room or something, and then it can go off, and yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting concept. I don't think that they're releasing them yet. They're still kind of. It wasn't a Kickstarter, but either way, it wasn't something that they were shooting up, or setting up for prime time at the moment. So, but I thought it was, again, I thought it was actually pretty cool. Okay, so let's read on here a bit more. I read that part. So on to some of the neat hardware. I know you said you really like the laptop form factor. So one of the neat things I came across was the Mira Book, a device that turns your phone into a laptop essentially. It felt solid, typing was great, and I could actually totally see myself taking one of these with me instead of my Surface Book if I just needed to use light applications and didn't want to risk damaging my more powerful machine. So the Mira Book, this is an interesting concept, and it's like what it is. It's a 13-inch laptop. There's a few of these different ideas out there, but Mira Book, comes with a certain expectation of what it's for, and because Mira gets used a lot for Windows devices like Miracast and all that, for Microsoft devices. But it does work. It works with Windows Phone because, of course, Windows Phone has Continuum, which works really well for that. But it also works for Android. Now, there's a few other of these kinds of things out there. Mira Book isn't the only one that does it. But the concept is that it's like a laptop dock, effectively, for your phone. And with certain software put in, it can, you just connect your phone to it. and then it will, it'll kind of configure itself to working on a on a desktop screen. Again, it's a 13-inch screen. It has USB-C ports and all that. It's pretty cool. What was it called? Superbook? Android Superbook. There's a few of these kinds of things, but I like this direction. I know Samsung had put out a patent. In fact, I think a lot of people are wondering why, with these kinds of devices like the MiraBook, okay, and I think the MiraBook's only going to cost like $300, which isn't a terrible price at all. But I think a lot of people ask, it's like, okay, why can't I just like plug in the phone to it? Like, why can't I just why isn't there like a dock, say, on the laptop itself that I can put the phone into? And I think it's because, and we talked about this a couple of years ago, Samsung has the patent where, where you connect or where you jack, you literally, say like on a laptop where the num key or the number keyboard is, right? The num keys and all that, where instead of there being num keys there, number keys, you could just slide in your phone. Okay, and I think Samsung has the patent on that, and I think that's why no one else is really doing it that way. And that's why you have like HP. HP has the extender for the Elite X3, which is a Windows phone, where it's literally just a little body that connects wirelessly to the HP Elite X3, and it becomes, effectively a Windows laptop, or at least a Windows 10 mobile-based laptop, thanks to Continuum. So that's I like this direction. I like how these things are going to where you can have multiple form factors. Asus did it. They had like their first Zen Pad, and I think their first Zen phone was a tablet. Now understand, it wasn't like a laptop because and that's probably why they got away with it. Okay, was a tablet where it had a phone as its innards, and like the phone could slide into the back of the tablet, but then you could slide the phone out and just take the phone and go on and do your business. But then the tablet, I think effectively, or pretty much was just a shell. Like it couldn't do anything without the phone connected. I could be wrong about that part. I never used one, and it's been a few years. But Asus did that as well, to where you could just slide in the phone. But again, I think the only reason they could do it where the phone would like directly connect with it was because it was a tablet, not a laptop. And like I said, Samsung I think has the patent on the laptop being able to do that. So yeah, the MiraBook, I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, not a ton of power. I mean, because it's running off of your phone. The Surface Book, which was also a star of recent tech conferences, that's still one of the most amazing things. I've already talked about that endlessly on Sovereign Tech. I don't have my hands on one yet, but just a beautiful thing. I know at CES, I think they did announce a new Surface Book, but it was a larger one. It was like 13 inches. But kind of the same concept. However, I think that one was only Android, or maybe it was Chrome OS, and it seemed to have less power. Like I think the screen wasn't even 1080p, and I don't know that it even had a quad-core processor. But the original Surface Book, not what am I talking about? Surface Book. I was thinking of the Yoga Book. Okay, so this person was talking about the Surface Book. Sorry. Yeah. Surface Book, obviously incredibly powerful computer. That's Microsoft's, that's their primary laptop that they released that really shocked the world, and it did, and it's a great form factor. So yeah, Miracast could be a very or Miracast. Boy, I'm just messing them all up. MiraBook could be a very interesting concept when you don't need a full-blown laptop with you, say like a Surface Book. Of course, the Yoga Book is really another answer kind of to this, where the Yoga Book, which can run Android, is this pocketable 10-inch computer, and I mean really, it is pocketable. That you could have with you as long as you don't need a ton of power, like say the power that a Surface Book has, or a more traditional laptop. Anyway, that's pretty cool. I like that idea of the MiraBook. I like those ideas of where your phone can just pretty much take on another form factor. Very, very cool. So the other one, let's read on here. Ockel's Sirius A and B felt and looked great, and I love the idea of a little CyberDeck type computer that I can just plug into a screen or bring along with a little keyboard. I don't know why the fuck Windows hasn't just made a phone that isn't basically this. So Ockel, small company, they just have, they did a crowdfund. They got funded like instantaneously, pretty much, because people thought that this idea was just so brilliant. And what it, I mean, to picture it, okay, what it effectively it's a phone, like, well, it's a desktop PC, okay, and but it looks like a phone, and it looks like a wedge, okay, like a triangular kind of wedge, to where along the back of it has all the ports you could want: full size HDMI, Ethernet, USB ports, maybe USB-C, and then of course the power port. But it's a phone, right? But it looks like a phone. It's not running a phone OS. It's running it runs Windows 10 Pro. The full thing has 8 gig of RAM, 128 gig storage in it. You really want to check it out. It's Ockel, OCKEL, ockelproducts.com, or the Series A. It's just like the star, Series A or Series B. And I mean, just a very, very fascinating form factor. And I agree. Why the fuck aren't more people doing this? And again, where it has the little screen built onto, or not, maybe not even so little, depending on which model you're going with, the A or the B. But it has kind of this phone form factor, but the phone itself has all of the adapters and connectors you could, or not adapters, but ports that you could ever want. It has more ports than the fucking MacBook Pro. Woo! Really, really cool looking. It looks like a little wedge. I mean, it's a slick looking device. I like that, and that's what I'm saying, is that a lot of the PC innovations that you saw at CES were incredible. Were really, really game changing. I mean, I chalk up the Ockel Series A and B that they're offering. I kind of chalk it up. I mean, like, this is sort of the new Commodore 64. To where it really like democratizes, not democratizes. I mean, any laptop kind of does that, but where it's this incredible, form factor that you can take anywhere and plug in fucking anything. I mean, it's really, really cool. So I thought that's a nice touch. So again, it's OCKEL, ockelproducts.com, if you want to look into that and see about getting your hands on one. Let's read on a little bit more here. Link Square is nothing more than, so this is Link Square, is nothing more than a handheld drug identification spectrometer that links with a smartphone app that does not require internet or the cloud, so obviously Bluetooth. Considering that drug testing sites at a lot of big rave events are generally banned, this is a great first little sign of biotech being available to the masses and helping with harm reduction. So now this is available at linksquare.io. And what it is, it's this little device that, again, connects with, it's like a scanner. In fact, it looks like, if you want to kind of picture it, it looks like, say on Star Trek, either one, original series, next generation, whatever, where they have the medical tricorder and they can pop out this little device that can scan whatever is there, right? It makes a little sound, okay? And that's what this Link Square does, is that, I mean, it's, as far as I know, it doesn't connect to your phone, or I mean, it doesn't like physically attach to your phone, but it's a device, obviously connects through Bluetooth and connects to an app on your phone, and it can scan a prescription for pretty much what it's made up of. This is very useful, and it does not require, it's not going to send a bunch of, and kind of, there's not really, I mean, yes, there's a point, because are you scanning illegal drugs in a certain geographic area? I could see where that would be very intriguing, but it's not required. This is the beauty of having people boots on the ground, because they can ask those questions. Wait a minute, does this have connected to the internet? Because if it does, this is just, big pharma and fucking big government keeping an eye on what I'm doing, and I don't like that. So it's not necessary to do that. It doesn't have to connect to the internet. But yeah, like he said, at a rave scene, at parties or whatever, you want to make sure that what you're taking isn't some kind of cut, or whatever drug you're ingesting, and you could use this scanner, this Link Square, and oh, yep, okay, this looks clean. I mean, so it's a step in that direction, and I think that's a great thing. You definitely want to democratize. I mean, you want to democratize kind of that kind of testing all the way around, every second, every day. It's not just for drugs, right? But this is again, it's a step in the right direction, and I can certainly see a lot of use cases for it. If I were a parent, if I had children, which I do not, but if I were, this would be a Christmas present in a heartbeat. I am not claiming that all children do drugs. I am just saying that, They probably maybe know someone who does, or they do themselves, and this would guarantee a lot of safety because a whole bunch of other things, like I said, has been banned. A whole lot of other drug testing, and a lot of these kits that have been sold online, which have saved who knows how many lives, are getting banned or shut down, at least in the United States. And so having something like this, yeah, good. Especially if the ability to test, for good ecstasy or something is kind of a side effect, or like, it's a fringe benefit because it's meant to do so many other things. So very interesting device. Definitely look into that more if that is your speed. No pun intended there. So let's read on a little bit. Finally, just a bit of fun. I got to play with this little toy, the Mechamon, and damn, do I want one now. Tons of control on the Android app. They let me use to control it. Lots of control over almost every aspect of how it works. And they also said they are going to open up the API later in the year so people can hack together whatever kind of controls they want. Now, this one, I'm going to put the YouTube video in the show notes, so that link to it so that you can check it out. Maybe I'll put all these links in the show notes, so at least the ones that he provided, so that you can look into some of these things that we're talking about here. But Mechamon is this. It looks like a spider. Okay, it has 4 legs. It can have more because it's very, it's really versatile. You can add on all kinds of things. Okay, now when I first describe this to you, you might think, and this is cool to talk about a fun toy that's there. I like that. You might think that it's redundant. Like, why have a physical toy? But I'll explain why I think that's why it's so cool, even though the video didn't necessarily get into it, nor did really anything like on their website. So the Mechamon, it's augmented reality. Okay, you have the physical, Mechamon. You have the physical toy, which is like this crawling, 4-legged thing that can kind of crawl around. Okay, again, looks sort of like a spider or a crab. And you can add things onto it. You can add missile launchers to it. Okay, and these are physical things that you add right onto the device itself, or that you add onto the Mechamon toy itself. And then on your smartphone, Android, whatever, on your smartphone, you control it. It works like a radio controlled car, right? Okay, you control it and it can move around, blah blah blah. And then on the screen, on your Android screen, because it's augmented reality, you are seeing, say you launch missiles at, the lamp near a desk, you will see a missile on your screen launch. Obviously, a physical missile does not launch from the Mechamon toy. And so you might be saying, well then, why not just have a completely digital thing? Why buy a physical Mechamon? Isn't that redundant? Isn't that there's no real need for that when you could just have, something going around? Since you're experiencing most of the action on your screen, why have this extra bit of business? Why even have the physical toy itself? And that's a fair point. And I think there's people who wouldn't want the physical toy at all, but would love to have kind of all that functionality that something like a Mechamon would provide, or offers. But here's the thing, is that I think there is something. I'm kind of reminded of some of like these, I forget what they called them, but they were like these mini cars, okay, that like mini radio controlled cars. And people, there's a whole community around this where you're adding on different rims and doing different paint jobs and all. There's just this huge market of all the ways that you can customize this thing. Now, maybe ever since kind of the digital, or the smartphone revolution, whatever you want to call it, has come around, maybe that little hobby has died. But I think when you consider like Nintendo's Amiibo, okay, which are these little, just these little figurines that you can buy, that the figurines themselves are effectively a code to work within, and like your 3DS, your Nintendo 3DS scans that you have the Amiibo, and then suddenly within the game you have new features. But at the same time, you have a physical you have a toy as well. I think that there's a real attraction to this, to where you could trick out physically, and you could physically trade, say, or whatever. Like there's you add this kind of physical aspect, this aspect of touch, and to where you always sort of see this thing, and it's kind of going around, and you can do certain physical things with it. Okay, I think that there's a bit of a winner here. Like I think it's actually kind of a cool idea. I understand why people would say, well, just make it completely digital, and just have all the augmented reality, just happen on your screen instead of anything physical, you kind of going on. But no, I see when you're able to configure and customize the Mechamon itself. I think that adds a layer to it, kind of like Amiibo does with games, to where people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this this rocket launcher and all this, and it makes it a little more real. I think that's the thing, is that it's not so cheapened, okay, by the fact that that it's completely digital, and really that does kind of become cheapened. You get something physical out of it, and like it's kind of in the world, and it helps make the entire augmented reality experience of it a lot more real. That's kind of my whole point on that. And I think there's something to that. Now they also, it seemed to be that they could you can connect multiplayer, and so you could sort of have the physical robot still, but then you could play with people far away or something, and you could do various varying degrees of games, which that's cool too. I mean, why not have that feature? So, but to have the physical have the physical Mechamon kind of be the representation of the power that it has. Yeah, I dig it. I don't think that's a very a bad idea at all. So you're going to want to check out the video for that one. But anyway, let's move on. We got one last bit here. feelvr, Feel VR, is a virtual reality linked chair and wheel combo for driving games. Although, as in the executive producer here for Sovereign Tech, the boots on the ground reporter, he says, although as an avid Elite Dangerous player and Star Citizen, I could easily see slapping my Hodas on it. So, and I got to drive around in a Forza type game with it, and damn, combined with a VR headset, it straight up felt like I was in a car with all the bumps and G-forces and everything. At the end of my time, I just went straight into a wall at full speed, and it was actually scary how much it felt like I was going to fly out of the seat. So this is something, again, it's not out there yet. These are one of these devices that's not out. Like a Mechamon, I think did come out just at the end of January here. But this is pretty wild. I mean, it is a chair, effectively, and steering control that is designed, and again, it's combined with a VR headset that is designed to give you the feeling that you are really driving. It's supposed to add on that extra element where it can kind of rotate, and it adds on all these different things. This is pretty cool. This kind of, in fact, really, I think this kind of thing is going to, well, this is going to be one of the future, and it's going to have far more wide-ranging uses than just, say, in video games. Than just saying like driving games, or even like Elite Dangerous, where it's simulating your cockpit. This is paving the way for somebody sitting in a chair, putting on their VR headset, and living their entire life, like doing so many different things within a virtual reality realm. This is really pointing in that direction. Even though this has a very specific use case, I could see the technology getting developed to work more across the board. But this one, I think they said the price is going to be around $3,500 for this, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it has at the bottom, it has certain motors that are kind of an adjustable, almost like a spring of sorts, where the chair you're sitting in, it feels like a racing car seat, and it'll move with you as you turn, and you have the pedals and everything built in, and you just it helps you get lost in a virtual reality driving or flying. Really, I like the person said, situation. It helps you get lost in that. So feelvr.game is the website to look into that. Very cool concept. Pretty sure it's not out yet, but there it is. So in the last bit, so overall, lots of IoT bullshit, lots of Shenzhen garbage. But a fair amount of actual new ideas and some nice applications of technology. So there was a bit more, but some of the stuff I want to save for a Sovereign Tech Prime episode. But those were the big gists of what he saw. Now to get into sort of what I saw outside looking in, that I found to be very interesting. Because there was quite a bit. There was, of course, I think one of the things that people were talking quite a bit about was the laptop from Razer, that's Razer, that had 3 screens. Like you could open it up and it would slide out 2 screens from the side of the main screen. I mean, and these were full screens. Now, the reason a lot of people talked about this, first off, is that it's cool. But second off was because somebody stole one of them because there was two different models of it, and there was absolutely no announcement whatsoever. There was no mention of it actually becoming or something that will be getting released. But the three screen kind of, it creates sort of a curved effect. I mean, it was pretty cool. I have to get. I don't think it's ever going to actually be a thing. I don't think that I don't know. First off, I can't picture what that would cost. Second off, I just don't know that there'd be that much of a market for it. And also, does it become redundant when you have so many VR headsets and other aspects of VR being available and being created? Like, why? It's going to get to the point. Like, I could picture where gaming becomes, you put on the VR headset, you're in the game, but maybe you're still using the mouse and say even like some kind of a WASD keys or something. Like, there's a company, is it Mad Catz, that releases the Wolf controller, where it's specifically just it's a like a palm-sized keyboard that has the keys, all the keys that you could want when you're playing some kind of like a first-person shooter or something like that. I could see something like that, or just overall, they're just going to put like a mock-up gun in your hand, say for a first-person shooter. This wouldn't help out much with like a strategy 4X game or something, okay, or an RTS, and that would have all the motion controls perhaps built into it, blah blah blah. So yeah, I don't see that kind of. I don't think the laptop's going away, but that kind of experience where it's like a 3-screen laptop, I just don't see it. I don't see the application. I don't see it being practical. I don't see. I mean, I know there's people that want it, but how many are you going to make of them? 100? I mean, sure, you can do that, but then how much are you going to have to sell them for to produce that shit? I mean, it's going to be, it's a very, it's like a Rolls Royce of computing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, of course. I'm just saying that this is not something that the average consumer is going to be getting their hands on anytime soon, and frankly, in my opinion, ever. Yeah, I can't picture it. So speaking of, well, why don't I talk about that? Because there's a few products here that I want to get into. But with the VR headset, probably the best one that I saw there that they had as far as virtual reality was, and this is also, again, a reference device. And a lot of the cool things that you saw at CES were just reference devices. Like, I think the 3-screen laptop from Razer was a reference device, meaning it's never going to actually get made or sold, but it's like, okay, how do you feel about this? Or this is actually a technology we could do, blah, blah, blah. And there was the Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 VR headset, which was pretty cool. It's something we've talked about. Some other companies are doing this. Sapphire and AMD are doing it. Intel's doing it with their own headset, where the headset has everything built right into it. Okay, you're not connecting it to a computer. You're not sliding in your smartphone. You're not doing anything. It's just its own VR headset. This kind of thing is going to be a reality. And, with Qualcomm using a Snapdragon 835, I think you could do it, because what's the Snapdragon 835 going to be getting used on that was such a big announcement? Remember at was it WinHack where they announced it that with that Windows 10 was going to become, was going to be able to run Windows 10, full Windows 10, not Windows 10 Mobile, but full Windows 10 will be able to run on ARM processors. But they said specifically the Snapdragon 835 is the only one that has enough power and that can handle the emulation of which the emulation is great. Don't consider that necessarily a flaw in this case. Sometimes it is. To where that can work on a headset. So this is probably going to end up running like Windows Holographic, and which is just Windows 10 for AR and VR. And but there it is. I mean, and it could have great battery life. But again, it's just a reference device. But it does the same thing that the Intel headset that we talked about on Sovereign Tech Prime episodes does. To where instead of like the HTC Vive from with Steam, you have to put sensors, and that allows you to walk around and interact kind of with your environment and let you know where you are. You're not just like blind as a bat like you are with an Oculus Rift. This has it where it's built right into the headset itself. You don't have to set up sensors or anything. It just has sensors built in where you can, I think with Intel they called it RealSense. I think that was the name of the tech that was in the VR headsets from Intel. So virtual reality was certainly a thing there, and there was a bunch of other headsets, but that's the one where it's like, okay, yep, I instantly see the application, and because it's running a Snapdragon 835, it could probably actually last a while on its own, because okay, it's not connected to a computer, but you sure as hell don't want to connect it to a wall, into a wall socket either. Okay, it needs to, it very much needs to stand alone. So, boy, there was so much here. I just wrote down a ton of shit. Kind of one of the big, I'm just going to mention this in the abstract. One of the big things that was at CES was everything seemed to have Alexa built into it. Or some other, quote unquote virtual assistant software. But Alexa seemed to be the big one. LG had their own, what is it? Or not LG, I'm sorry. Yeah, LG had a refrigerator that had Alexa built into it. Okay. but, which, I mean, actually, honestly, that's for, if you consider Amazon Echo to be a viable product, which I don't. I mean, I get why people use it. I'm not saying that it doesn't sell. I'm saying that I think it's a terrible idea. Okay. But, for what it gets used for, putting it on the refrigerator is actually the best thing in the world, because what do people do with it? They order shit from Amazon from it, and they use it for a cooking timer. There you go. Okay. Then where is a good place for that? On the refrigerator door. Sure. So, I mean, I get it, but it's just crazy that refrigerators. Oh, I could go on forever about that. So Lenovo also they came out with the Lenovo Smart Assistant, which also has Amazon Echo built into it, but it's designed. It's effectively like, it's an Amazon Echo. It's a cylinder, the whole thing, but it has subwoofer built into it, so it just has like much better sound, overall. And I think they ended up saying it was going to run like 130, but it's just a really improved sound version of the Amazon Echo. It's interesting. I'm amazed that Amazon really opened up the APIs and everything to allow so much different hardware connect, to to Alexa's servers effectively. And well, I mean, that just goes to show that what was the actual purpose of the Amazon Echo? To get you to buy shit on Amazon. Like that's where the real money's getting made, not in the cylinder, not in selling the actual device. So they're laughing all the way to the bank, I'm sure. Probably the best computer I saw that I thought was really, really interesting. Now, this isn't exactly new, but this is an updated version, and that is the HP Sprout. And kudos to HP for, inside of just a couple years, suddenly becoming like a dominant player as far as PCs. I mean, I remember when we were, busting their chops on Cybertech a few years ago, because the company was splitting. They're in real trouble. It's like, are they even going to go bankrupt? They tried to come out with their own tablet device with their own OS and all this different shit, and everything was falling apart seemingly for the company. And then, wow, 180. Now, I mean, they make some of the best, if not the best, PCs on the market. Phenomenal. I mean, wow. Next to, Lenovo, of course, ThinkPads are great for what they are. The Yoga Book that we mentioned before is great. Of course, Microsoft, their Surface line is top notch. No doubt about that. Dell is still, the workhorse that they are. But I mean, HP, like the HP Spectre, I mean, these are gorgeous machines. They are far more beautiful than anything Apple's making. And I mean, no offense to Apple as far as that goes, because I will give credit to Apple for their hardware design. So, but, anyway, the HP Sprout, this is interesting. So this is an all-in-one, but it's not what you think. All-in-one, it's a desktop, okay? It's like a 21.3-inch screen, okay? And what this has, and this is some of that VR technology we were just talking about from Intel, and this is how it's getting used in ways that, aren't just a VR headset or something, that aren't just virtual reality. Okay, what it does is it's this 21.3-inch screen. Okay, and it's the base, the whole thing has the speakers built in. Again, it's an all-in-one, it has it all. All right, and it has ports on it, as USB and all that stuff, all the good things that you want. But on top of it is sort of what looks like, if you remember old overhead projectors, how you had the overhead kind of magnifying glass that actually, where the light shot up and, would beam it onto the screen. It has what looks like that. It has this overhang over the screen that projects down a second 20-inch screen. I'm sorry, it's a 23-inch screen that makes up the base. And then the second screen is a 20-inch screen. And on this 20-inch, or like literally there's a mat laying in front of this computer, okay? And the 20-inch screen beams down, and that can be used as, again, it's using that RealSense technology, or RealSense 3D, I think it's technically called. It has a camera that allows you to use it as a touch keyboard. It allows you to use it as like a Wacom tablet where you can draw on it and all this stuff. And it all works independently or in concert with what's happening on the standard LED screen. that's in front of you, the standard 23-inch screen. All right, and so you have this. So it's a touch mat, but it's projected and it's working in concert with this. Now, the interesting thing is that, again, that overhanging projector and camera, you could put, you could grab anything. I don't know. Say you have a little Funko Pop figure of Blanca from Street Fighter 2 or something. I'm not saying I have one, though. It's funny that I'd mention it. But you could put that down, okay, on the touch mat, and then the camera, again, which is also projecting the screen, will do a 3D scan of it, and you will end up with a 3D model of it in your computer. It'll just instantaneously do it. Very much, this is kind of like Iron Man stuff, right? And not that it's going to project a 3D model for you onto the touchpad, but you do have it on screen, and then you can, do all these different things and work with it. Some of the examples that they show off is where you could even, like a guy was designing surfboards or something, and he wanted these, like, really classic designs. Like, he wanted this, like, leaf design. He found this leaf, and so he literally grabbed a bunch of these leaves, brought it to the computer, put the leaves onto the touchpad. It scanned, the cameras, the RealSense cameras scanned them, put them in to the computer, and then when he was designing these surfboards, he was able to actually take the designs of those leaves and create this really really beautiful artistic design on the bottom of a surfboard. It was really cool. So you could scan anything, and then you could go and 3D print them. Now this only runs, I think these start at like $1,600. That's phenomenal. Okay, for an all-in-one computer in the first place. I know today you can get all-in-ones for $500, if not less, but for a fairly powerful computer, and it has an i7, it has a terabyte of storage, which, look, for something when you're doing 3D modeling and all this shit, right? Like, if you don't, 1 terabyte's the bare minimum. You've got to store all those 3D files. So that's really cool. And there's a lot of different things that you could do with this, and also, it has this built-in drawing pad, and you can envision where you're having a meeting, say, with a remote team, where you're on Skype, say on the big screen, on the main 23-inch LED screen, and then you're doing all this, like, artistic or drawing work or development work on the screen in front of you, and it's all being shared, like, effectively, kind of a screen share of sorts. But it's the screen share of everything you're doing on this touchpad, on this touch mat. And then again, like I said, it turns into a keyboard and has all these configurable controls and everything. It's a really, really interesting idea. The thing is that if you're just a journalist and you do, if you're just a journalist and you're a touch typer and all that, or not touch typer, yeah, touch typer, that means that you don't have to look at the keyboard. Obviously, you don't need this kind of computer for anything. Okay, in fact, you don't need much of a computer if that's all you do. You just want to make sure you have a great keyboard. None of these real touch keyboards are, or projected keyboards are really matching up to a great keyboard, and maybe they never will. Maybe they will. So keep that in mind. How important is a keyboard to you when you look at these things? But this is really the future. And then you can just, say if you have an actual 3D printer, you could scan things, make exact copies of them, and then 3D print the goddamn thing. Certain categories, they just ran out of some of scarcity or at least of the scarcity of collectability. So I think this is just a fascinating device. Again, it's called the HP Sprout, and this is all part of something that I really appreciated of what at the Windows 10 hardware event in October, or it was beginning of November, whatever. This was something that was really exciting me, as I said, like, look, okay, virtual reality, augmented reality, these are going to be parts of the future. But you have to create the tools to allow people to create for this future. And here's just another one of those tools to where, really all you need is a scanner. The computer's just kind of being a nicety. But even just having that RealSense scanner to where, you could scan anything and then bring it into the digital world, fuck yeah. And then you really could. And I'll admit it. What excited me about this was that, and I've talked about this before, this is kind of a long game theory of mine, is that what Bitcoin did for money, virtual reality can do for property. And what I mean by that is that all of the things you own, you could carry with you on a thumb drive. And if you're wearing, like, say, HoloLens, or you're wearing some kind of AR device or VR device, all these things that you kind of appreciate, works of art, I don't know, all this different stuff. I mean, obviously you can't cook in VR, not exactly, you know what I mean. Um, you could bring with you, and so wherever you go, whatever apartment you're staying in, if you travel a lot, you could make it literally look like home. And even the most personal or ancient of keepsakes that you have, you could digitize. So I think this is something that people are eventually people are all going to want at least one of these scanners, to do varying things. So, but this allows you to get very creative with it and do all kinds of wild shit. And you can even, oh, I could just see so much, so many possibilities with the HP Sprout. I thought that was just a really really cool device, or a really cool desktop. So again, interesting things are happening in the PC space. Also, there was the Dell Canvas, which is kind of like the Dell Canvas is a screen, 27-inch screen, 4K. That, or wait, no, it's not 4K. It's that QHD. Sorry, which is almost 4K. But the Dell Canvas, picture the Surface Studio, okay, Microsoft Surface Studio, where a lot of people have gone nuts about that. We've already talked about Surface Studio before. The Dell Canvas is just the screen, no computer built in like the Surface Studio, but it allows you to do most of the things that you imagine that you do with the Surface Studio, and it's a beautiful screen. People have been asking for this because a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I love the Surface Studio. I love what you can do by drawing right onto the screen, and even using the Surface Dial, which has been very popular, and people are already going nuts with what they think they can do with that, and good for them." But everybody's been asking, oh, I just wish I could hook it up to a much more powerful computer. Well, the Dell Canvas is your answer to that. So I thought that was cool that that's out there. And so it's a screen, it can sit in a bunch of different ways, and it can work as, I mean, it's not an all-in-one machine, but you can connect any computer to it and then have all those advantages that you see when people use the Surface Studio. And they start at around, it's around $2,000, so like half the price of the Surface Studio. Which sounds about right. So that was an interesting, a very interesting little product. There were some other robots there. There was the Kuri robot, Kuri. Again, we kind of talked about the issues with robots earlier. I think we did talk about Razer's Project Valerie, which that was the 3-screen laptop that I thought was. I mean, it's cool, but I just don't see it. Like nobody's. That's not really mobile, is it? So, and there were some fitness wearables. I don't think we necessarily need to go into those. There's some beds. I mean, there were some interesting ideas. So Faraday Future did a bit of a showing there, and with their FF91 car. Look, the Faraday Future is supposed to be this competitor with Tesla. I was initially a bit excited about it just because I wanted to see some competition in the space. And I mean, I was excited about it like 3 years ago when they first announced Faraday Future. But there's been so many cash flow problems, and they've had to stop so much production on things. Like it's like they're just fucking showing off. I mean, like it's so debatable whether or not there's going to be an actual model, which was sort of a problem, I think, with some of what I've seen, outside looking in of CES is, what the hell? Like, is any of this stuff ever going to actually get released? And a lot of it was specifically just demos. It's just reference devices to show off to people. And I get annoyed by that, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to see what technology can do, certainly. Let's see, some of Asus's new Zenfone line got shown off, which I love the Asus Zenfone line. One of the more interesting things being done in smartphones. They had the Zenfone AR, which has Project Tango built in, but for a much lower price than, like, say, it's a much better package than the Lenovo Fab 2, which was coming, the Fab 2 Pro, which also had Project Tango. Project Tango is that 3D mapping technology that Google developed. And so the Zenfone AR might be something if you're interested in Tango, which Tango has interesting, capabilities, especially when it comes to gaming. Yeah, especially if you're combining your mobile gaming with mobile VR or something, or mobile AR. I mean, like, Tango could really be a very, very interesting prospect. So the Zenfone AR is, that's one that came out. They also they came out with a new Zenfone Zoom, which my daily driver, and what I've called the greatest smartphone of all time at one point. I mean, that, how much can that hold up? But I mean, obviously this phone has no problem. It has 4 gig of RAM and all that. But the Zenfone, The Zenfone Zoom is one of my favorite phones. It has a camera that has like an actual optical zoom, like a 3x optical zoom, like mine does. And they came out with the successor to that as well there, which might be something you're interested in looking at. My main problem with the new, like the Zenfone 3 line and the new Zenphones, ever since the Zenfone 2 line, is that they added in the fingerprint sensors, which I hate, and they went away. Well, not this isn't ASUS's fault. It's not ASUS's fault that Intel dropped their system on a chip, their SoC, Atom processors and all that. Largely dropped them. That Intel effectively got out of the mobile phone business. Okay, effectively. That's not ASUS's fault, but I was really, really hoping, because they had x86 compatibility. I was really hoping that could become a thing, and it just didn't. So I get annoyed that they have ARM chips, but you can't get a phone without an ARM chip in it. And so that's not a big deal. But I do hate that they still have the fingerprint readers on them. I think that's just a huge security exploit. Tons of problems with that, ethical problems, among others. So. But still, I mean, the Zenphones each one of them is just a really solid, well-built, great device. The other thing, this isn't like the most exciting thing in the world, but I just want to mention it because it's the successor to my present laptop that I recently just acquired. But the Dell Inspiron 15. And this is an upgrade in the 7000 series. What I use right now is the Inspiron 15 7559, and it is just a beast. I mean, I throw anything at it and it does just fine. I mean, the only thing is you want to get a solid state drive in it if you can, and actually you can fit an M2 and a 2.5 inch disc in it. So if you wanted that extra storage of a 1 terabyte drive, rock and roll. So the 7559, which I use right now to do pretty much everything, it has a dedicated video card. That's kind of the most important part of it. Really, any laptop that I want, like it's got to. If you're a gamer, if you're not a gamer, it doesn't matter so much. But if you're a gamer, you got to have a dedicated graphics card, which the Dells do. Now, the interesting thing is that they release they have an update in the 7000 series coming out, and it has, instead of like mine has, I think mine has the 940M with 4 gig of VRAM, but this will have the 1050 or the 1050 Ti. In fact, I don't even think it's the mobile version. Like one of those is probably the mobile version. The other is just kind of the raw card. But the body looks largely the same. Has the red. The only thing that looks nicer about it. Well, understand these are only $800 computers. They start at $800. In fact, the 7559 Windows Central just did best laptops that you can buy right now. And as far as best gaming laptops or best laptops you can buy in the $1,000 range, $1,000 and under, the Dell 7559 won as far as a gaming laptop. It's just so powerful for the price, for $800. But anyway, yeah, Core i5, Core i7, you can get a 1080p screen, which I recommend. I think 4K, is bullshit. And it can handle up to 32 gig of memory, which I think the 7559 can do that as well. I have 16 gig in mine. And it can either come with a 512 M2 solid state drive, or it can come with a 1 terabyte, it can also come with a 1 terabyte hard drive, or just the 1 terabyte hard drive built into it. So, but the nice thing about the 7000 series from Dell is that it's like 2 screws on the bottom, and you have complete access to the entire innards of the laptop. Like, it is so easy to upgrade and replace shit on these. I just love it. I think they're, especially for the price, if you're talking sub $1,000, they are absolutely the best laptops on the planet. Modern laptops. I mean, if you want to talk about what's the greatest laptop out there, well, go get yourself a LibreBoot T400 or something. Okay, and that'll be under $1,000. But again, you're using significantly older hardware, but it's privacy centric, right? But as far as computer, just run-of-the-mill computer that you want to get under $1,000, the Dell Inspiron 15 7000 series is just bar none. It is the absolute best. I'm nothing less than impressed with mine, and I do like on this one. I noticed so you can get them in different colors, but there's sort of this black and red theme, which I love. I identify. I get it. And this one it looks like it has red keys, so it probably has red lights. They're black with red lettering, which that's the only problem I have with with my 7559 is that the backlit keyboard is like this white, and that just sucks. I hate that because I mean it's not too bright, and you can change the brightness, but if you're in a dark room, you notice, and it's too much. Like, it kind of hurts the eyes. So I like the idea of it going to be red. I thought that maybe Lenovo somehow patented that or something, because with their IdeaPad gaming series, the Y700s have all the red keyboards. I thought maybe they had the corner on that somehow. But if Dell's doing it, great, awesome. Which, I mean, of course they couldn't, because the Alienwares, you can change the colors of your entire, and that's Dell, and you can change the entire scheme, light scheme of the keyboard, or of the laptop itself. So this is a nice machine, starting at $800. If you were wondering, hey, is there a great computer I should buy out of that? That's the one. is the new 7000 series, not the 7559, though you could probably get those for a song now, and that's worth every penny. I feel no need to upgrade mine. But yeah, there you go. Even though, I mean, admittedly, like the 1050 GTX card, that's a lot of power. That's great. Even if you had to pay a couple of $100 extra for the TI or something, I mean, do it. It's totally worth it. So, and do get the i7, I think, unless you're like not a serious gamer, then you can get away with the i5. So the Dell, the 7000 series, the Inspiron 15 7000 series from Dell was, I think, a star of that show. I mean, it was just a refresh, it was just an upgrade, but there's a reason they just upgraded it, because the first, the 7559 is selling fucking gangbusters because it's such a great deal. It's such a great computer. So rock solid. And I love the feel of it. I mean, they're not heavy either. I mean, it's just super nice. So anyway, I think that's the bulk out of CES. Yeah, the amount of IoT there was annoying. What's interesting, though, is that a lot of the IoT was pointing in the direction of Amazon Echo, of Alexa. Or something else. I'm sure there was some Cortana devices there as well, and who knows what else. But very interesting that they're all heading, that route. There's inherent problems with that. I mean, it's centralization straight up. But to some degree, if I were to speak as a consumer that was for some, Satan-forsaken reason that I wanted IoT in my life, which I don't, I would say that, okay, good, because Amazon does handle security, as to where a lot of these companies themselves do not. So if it's all just a back end, or if it's all just a front end to Amazon's back end of Echo, then great. That makes me feel a little bit better about this. But understand, just because Echo's the back end doesn't mean that it still can't become part of a botnet to shut down the internet, like happened on October 21st, 2016. So keep that in mind. But yeah, a lot of IoT there. There were some watches there, which, smartwatches or Android Wear watches are all supposed to be in the next couple weeks. They're really supposed to hit the street. I think February 9th is the release for Google's own smartwatches, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that, because that's a category, a market category that I'm really interested in. But I'm only interested in that if it can replace my phone. Doesn't have to kill the smartphone. I just wanted to replace it if I want to have that option. But it sounds like there was a lot of people at CES that were schlepping stuff that was privacy-centric, really privacy-centric, getting away from the cloud, giving users total control, and I'm so glad that was a part of it. I think that's really great. That's really important, and the fact that there's companies out there that see the need for that. Again, this is a topic we're going to be covering quite a bit this month of February 2017 in Sovereign Tech, is that the crypto economy is really happening. A lot of the shit is getting built up, and it's back. And it couldn't be a better time, considering President Trump considering government. Okay, it's something that needs to exist today, now. No more waiting. I mean, we need to encrypt everything. So there we have it. Anyway, CES, yeah, not the worst CES I've seen. In fact, a lot of money getting put in directions that I like, which is great, which I have not been able to say for CES really the past couple of years, or at least certainly a couple of years ago. So right on. Anyway. Enough of that. That is our Sovereign Tech CES special for 2017. So I don't have to cover all of this in the main show, and we can get on to other topics. Not to say that this isn't interesting, because this is kind of a preview into where the direction that a lot of the tech world's going, and some of these directions are all right. So there you have it. Enough of it. Of course, new Sex and Science Hour this week, new Sovereign Tech out this week. Woo! And and I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.